Welcome to Drowsy Histories, a place where history unfolds at an unhurried pace, accompanied by calm, low-light visuals that spare your eyes and invite reflection. Imagine a gentle breeze carrying the faint scent of crushed grape skins and warm Mediterranean earth. Tonight we will drift unhurriedly through the drinking customs of ancient Rome, listening to amphorae being unsealed, watching sunlight glint across terracotta cups, and tracing how humble table wine and elite vintages alike shaped daily life from legionary camps to marble-lined triclinia. Our journey flows in 10 calm segments, beginning with the vine itself and ending centuries later as Roman chalices yield to Christian ritual. Each segment will linger where the past still whispers vineyard terraces on sun-bleached hills, smoky tavern counters, candle-lit banquet couches, inviting you to absorb details at a pace as smooth as well-aged Falernian. Take a slow breath. Feel dusk settle over distant vine rows, cicadas fading into night hush. Our first segment waits among those rows, where the annual miracle of grape to wine quietly begins. Picture a gentle dawn on the slopes of Mount Massico, north of Naples. Pale light kisses rows of sprawling vines, their leaves still glistening with dew. Farm slaves move softly between trellises, wicker baskets swinging from calloused hands, careful not to disturb the dusty bloom protecting each plum-dark grape. This is Falernian country, ground destined for the most celebrated wine in Rome's long memory. Long before senators boasted of cellars and sailors ferried amphorae to Britannia, Etruscan farmers coaxed vines up living maple trees, letting clusters dangle high above browsing goats. Later, Greek colonists along the Campanian coast introduced lower, stake-trained rows easier to prune, simpler to harvest. The Romans, pragmatic as ever, adopted both methods where soil and climate favored them, blending experimentation with tradition until vineyards quilted the peninsula from Ligurian terraces to Apulian plains. Roman agronomists, such as Columella, spoke of the vine's 3 silent tutors: solum, situm, calum soil, aspect, and sky. Here on Massico, volcanic dirt, crumbly with ancient ash, warms quickly under southern sun, ripening grapes to a sweetness rivaled only by the chalky stretches of Secuban marshland further south. Inland, near the Sabine Hills, cooler nights slowed maturation, yielding sharper, lighter wines prized for their youthful vigor. All harvests, whether coarse or refined, began with dawn's coolness so juice would flow chilled and clear. When late September sun hung low, harvesters gathered in low-walled press-a-simple wooden tuns or stone basins lined with resin. Bare feet or wooden paddles crushed fruit until juice trickled into waiting terracotta jars. Must, fragrant with wild honey and laurel, foamed gently as native yeasts woke. Some estates added a scattering of boiled must to fruitum, to boost sweetness and help preservation. Others left juice pure, trusting clay and time. Fresh wine traveled into tall amphoranero, necked, pointed-bottom vessels sealed first with pine resin, later with clay stoppers daubed in pitch. In cool cellars half dug into hillside tufa, rows of amphorae rested on sandbeds. Over months, a thin waxen film, floor, formed on surface, guarding liquid beneath from souring air. Vintners listened for faint fizz or off-scents, adjusting pitch seals, sometimes decanting into new containers if must turned restive. Not all amphorae aged equally. Falernian, grown between 320 and 400 meters on sun-blown Massico, commanded highest praise amber gold, high in potency, best after a decade's patience. Secuban, once harvested from lowland marshy loam near Terracina, offered deep color and heady perfume until Nero flooded its fields. Surrentine, lighter and herb-tinged, pleased palates yearning for moderation. Each bore stamped neck seal state name, consuls yearly ancestors of vintage labels, signaling social worth before a jar left the cellar. Behind every celebrated vintage stood quiet labor. Vineyard slaves pruned vines in February, chill, tied new canes with willow switches in budding April, and weeded dusty rows through July heat. At dusk, they drank the estate's own thin, acidic laurowine made by soaking pressed skins in water, a ghost of flavor reserved for those whose toil flavored master's cups. Yet even this pale brew carried calories and mild comfort, easing sore backs beneath thatched dormitory roofs. Ancient agronomists reckoned a jugarum roughly 2/3 of an acre could yield 500 amphorae in generous years. Given Rome's bustling million mouths, annual consumption soared into millions of liters. Grain fleets from Egypt brought wheat north, returning hulls often ballasted with southern Italian wine, ensuring city markets brimmed year-round. As sun climbs higher, harvested baskets empty, presses fall silent, and fermentation murmurs begin in darkened sheds. Within rising vapors drift faint promises of legionaries toasting ration cuts at frontier fires, of senators debating in marble atria, of slaves sipping posca between grinding sessions at urban mills. All those scenes their convivial ease, their sober necessity trace, lines back to these slopes, this morning's cool dew, and the quiet hands guiding grapes into jars. Breathe in that blend of ash-rich soil and crushed fruit. Let the image linger. Stone presses cooling and lengthening shade, amphorae rows deepening into cellar dusk, vineyard leaves rustling like low applause for a harvest safely gathered. Let the dawn mist over Massico fade from view and shift your gaze to Rome itself, crowded, fragrant, endlessly humming. The sun has scarcely cleared the Capitoline when a chorus of daily drink begins to rise. Amphora stoppers knocked loose, bronze ladles clinking against clay, splash of watered wine into rough-walled cups. In this hour, the empire's vast social pyramid wakes thirsty, each tier raising a vessel suited to its means. Picture a dawn guard post along the Rhine limes, wooden palisades rimed with cold, breath blooming white in lamplight. Legionaries queue before a copper cauldron suspended above embers. Inside steams a mixture of sharp young wine cut with river water and a ladle of sour grape vinegar posca militaris. One at a time, soldiers lower dented pewter cups, swirling the liquid once to blend warmth into chill, then swallowing in 3 or 4 practiced gulps. Posca tastes blunt acidic, faintly fruity, invigorating as a slap to the cheeks. Vinegar's bite masks questionable water, while a splash of wine calms morning stomachs churned by last night's barley gruel. Regulations grant roughly a liter per man each day, divided across meals. Centurions might upgrade to uncut red course, but respectable Vinyumiat, even they dilute by half, believing undiluted drink a step toward chaos. From frontier frost drift south to a suburban mill outside Rome's Porta Maggiore. The first shift of enslaved laborers pauses after turning millstones since midnight. Overseers hand out shallow wooden bowls of laura. Second, press wineskins rinsed in water, fermented a second time. Color is pale rose-brown. Aroma lingers between grape must and damp straw. Workers sip slowly, letting mild alcohol dull wrist ache, gulping water-laced lees for calories more than pleasure. Between sips, someone cracks a joke about yesterday's ration being stronger. Laughter flares, brief and bright as sparrows in dusty rafters, then quiets when the horn signals return to the grind. Laura may be weak, but fellowship is potent, and a shared bowl tempers the weight of grinding stones. Closer to the forum, shop shutters creak upward, bakers dust loaves with molten snow of flour. A fruit vendor pours dregs of previous evening's amphora into a small terracotta jug, tops it with spring water from a street fountain, then slips a sprig of rue inside cheap infusion to mask oxidation. She'll sip throughout the morning, never enough to blur mental sums, just sufficient to soften the buzz of carts and crows above the bustle. Public fountains, fed by aqueducts, stand at nearly every corner. Citizens fill earthen jugs, then add a spoonful of sour wine vinegar for flavor and presumed health. Even children are given watered sipsate parts, water to 1 part, wine believed, to strengthen blood and steady nerves. Strictly sober water is viewed with suspicion. Raw water is for beasts, not sturdy Romans. Turn down a shadowed alley off the Suburra. Here, beneath an awning of patched linen, a papina, wine bar, beckons with painted sign, cluster of grapes, bronze jug, price list scratched in hurried Latin. Inside, clay amphorae rest upright in wooden cradles, their rims sealed with resin. The tavern keeper a broad woman with bracelets that jingle offers 3 grades. Highland red young, astringent, 1 as per cup. Campanian mixtu parts wine, 1 part well, water. Spiced with pennyroyal, half as. Dies fast reductimi yesterday's leftover heavily diluted, quarter as. Laborers from nearby marble yards jostle at the counter, choosing middle grade for value and taste. They mix with freemen messengers, a retired centurion nursing old wounds, a pair of dice-throwing teenagers skipping grammar school. Cups are coarse, ceramic. Often unglazed one might glimpse sediment swirling, broken skins rising like tiny islands. Even so, conversation grows animated, weaving gossip and plans through vine-scented air. Move next through an apartment block courtyard in the Esquiline. The cobbler's family settles for lunch. Lentil stew, hard cheese rind, and a jug of messatach heap wine diluted 2 to 1. The mother ladles measures into glazed cups etched with fortuna symbols. As they eat, she reminds children to pace themselves. Spilled wine invites penetes, household gods, to turn away. They obey, sipping carefully, cheeks tinged with warmth, not giddiness. Among Romans, strength lies in dilution ratio. Elite banquets might water wine 3 or 4 parts to 1, boasting temperance while savoring subtle flavors of aged Falernian. Ordinary folk skew closer to 1, maximizing limited funds. Only barbarians are caricatures of them drink wine unmixed, a mark of uncivil custom. Thus, the daily cup is not merely intake, but recipe for identity, a liquid line separating Romanitas from the perceived wilds beyond. As siesta heat hums over tiled roofs, many add honey, mulsum, and herbs to mid-afternoon draft. At a laundress stall near the Tiber, women wring tunics while sipping mugs perfumed with cinnamon and lovage. Honey cuts tannic bitterness, herbs soothe throats, raised in song above sloshing vats. A moment later, laughter peals when a tunic slips into river current. 2 plunge after it, splashing cold water, sending droplets into sunblaze. Their cups wait on shore, half empty, bees already hovering over sticky rims. Return northward where legionaries atop Hadrian's wall huddle against damp twilight. A centurion oversees distribution. 8. Sciathe of stronger wine. No water to night of victory in skirmish earns richer reward. Fires crackle, shields lean on turf ramparts. Soldiers toast Jupiter Optimus Maximus, then mothers far south, then the dice gods. Cups drain, story barrels open, exaggerated exploits, phantom beauties in frontier settlements, predictions of earlier discharge. By final round, tongues loosen, yet discipline holds. Tomorrow's dawn, drill balances tonight's warmth. How much does the empire consume daily? Ancient historians claim heroic quantities, Marcus Antonius boasting a congius, 3.26 liters, in one sitting, or Augustus's physician advising water-laced moderation. Archaeology tempers rhetoric. Average adult likely drank 0.5, 1 liter of diluted wine throughout a day, totaling perhaps a modern half bottle of table wine at full strength. Soldiers' rations matched that, but with more vinegar. Elite banquets spiked intake episodically, yet seldom nightly. Wine replaced unsafe water, provided calories, and underpinned social glue. but perpetual drunkenness was frowned upon. Philosophers like Seneca praised modest cups that warmed intellect. The satirist Juvenal mocked suburban drunks stumbling through moonlit alleys. Evening settles across Subura. Tavern shutters close, amphora stoppers replaced. At the cobbler's apartment, last candle sputters beside elders sharing a diluted nightcap now. 4 parts water, 1 part leftover wine, a gentle sedative. In frontier forts, watch bells remind revelers to douse fires, rinse cups, turn in, posca cauldrons cool for tomorrow's dawn watch. Let the taste of watered wine linger on your palate tart, utilitarian, quietly sustaining. The Subura's first oil lamps flicker against plaster walls, splashed with fading ochre. Somewhere, a baker's peel slides loaves into brick oven. Nearby, a smith's hammer sings its last echo of the day. Amid this twilight chorus, wooden shutters swing wide on a narrow shop front. A Papanatha neighborhood's beating heart for drink, gossip, and dice. Duck beneath a lintel darkened by years of smoke and resin. Clay lamps hang from iron hooks, glowing like small amber moons. The air greets you with mingled scents, sharp wine vapors, garlic stew simmering in bronze pot, charcoal embers, and a hint of fish brine from amphorae stacked shoulder, high at the rear. A counter of volcanic tuff stretches along one wall. Embedded dolia-large terracotta jars hold wine at differing levels of dilution. Their rims are smeared with cooled pitch, giving off faint, piney sweetness. Behind the counter presides Helvia, hair coiled snugly in a net of bronze wire, earrings glinting against lamplight, her eyes alert, appraising track every cup, cast, and coin. She moves with deft assurance, tilting a bronze ladle into dolium, then splashing wine into coarse clay cups called calices. A quick swirl proves color, a sniff confirms it hasn't turned. She wipes ladle rim on linen, never wasting a drop. To Helvia, the room is a map of micro-alliances. The quarrymen who pay reliably at dusk, the rhetorician's clerk who tips for stronger pours, the smooth-talking dice sharper she watches like a hawk. With a lifted eyebrow or faint click of tongue, she orchestrates placement troublemakers near the door, generous regulars by the warm hearth. Square table splanks atop amphora crate soccupy the floor. Customers sit on 3-legged stools or squat on heels, cloak folds pooled at ankles. Conversation rises in overlapping strata, Latin laced with provincial accents, Greek curses tossed across boards, stray words of Punic or Gaulish surfacing like bubbles through wine. Cups clink, dice tumble, laughter flares, then hushes when Helvia's ladle thumps dolium rimher call for owed coin. In one corner, 2 sailors and a young scribe play tally-knucklebone dice, inscribed with Roman numerals I through 6. Stakes. A rough wool cloak versus a half-jug of marum. Cups empty quickly. Each lost throw demands a penalty sip, measured by Cyathus ladle, roughly 45 millipound. By third round, laughter slurs. The scribe, cheeks flushed, attempts to quote Virgil's lines about Bacchus but forgets the meter. Sailors guffaw, slap backs, order a cheap refill. Another table launches Navia, a drinking contest scored by sink-tossing nutshells into a small bowl floating in water. Each successful hit allows victor to command another to drink. Misses require drinking oneself. The bowl rocks gently. Water lap-laps over edge, dampening graffiti carved into wood, crude hearts, stylized phalluses, scratched tagline, Dicamus, bibamus, gaudiamus. Let us speak, drink, rejoice. From a kitchen, recess drifts aroma of lentil garlic pottage, spiced with lovage and a pinch of garum. Helvia's cousin ladles thick stew into wooden trenchers. Customers dip hunks of day-old bread, soaking juices before wine loosens fingers too much. On a side shelf, soft cheese wedges rest beneath fig leaves, sold by weight, Salty tang offsets tannins in even the roughest wine. Near the back, where lamp, smoke, stains, ceiling beams, two meretrice-registered prostitutes share, a jug of watered red, laughter, lilting. Ivory pins hold their curled hair, colored ribbons mark them as free professionals, not slaves. Patrons glance, weigh coin purses, perhaps strike quiet bargain tavern common rooms, serve as open vestibules to upper chambers rented by the hour. Roman law tolerates these exchanges, provided taxes are paid and nighttime curfew honored. Travel a mental mile along Via Appia, where carts creak under moonlight. A roadside taberna diversoria offers shelter to drovers, travelers, and couriers. Inside, smoke from pine wood hearth curls toward rafters heavy with hanging sausages. Oil lamps sputter, sticky wine sloshes from goatskin sacks. Unlike city popinae, this inn provides straw pallets, stabling for mules, and a single large dolium of thin wine ladled free with purchase of hot bean soup. The innkeeper marks customer tallies by scratching chalk strokes on doorpost simple, quick, erasable. Back in Rome, a torch-bearing vigiles patrol pauses outside Helvia's doorway. City statutes forbid serving wine to slaves after sundown unless masters permit. The patrol eyes clientele, exchanges nods with Helvia, who signals lawful status with an official tavern token nailed near lintel. Satisfied, the vigils move on, sandals echoing down alley, lamps burn lower, wine in dolia sits finger breadths from bottom, voices turn husky, dice, losers mumble oaths to Fortuna. Helvia announces ultima potio, final pour, and stoppers, amphorae. One quarryman, limbs loose, leans too heavily on table. It tilts, sloshing cups, but a nearby soldier steadies him with practiced grip. A final chorus of toasts. Salus Helenae, Ave Bacchae, sit tibi terra levis, rolls beneath the beam rafters. Stools scrape, cloaks sling over shoulders. Patrons spill into street, breath fogging in cool night. Helvia sweeps sawdust toward threshold, tosses wine dregs onto cobbles to mingle with runoff. She douses lamps until only embers glow inside granite counter hollows. A last lock clicks. Step outside now. Alley echoes fade. Distant fountain murmurs, echoing posca water. Overhead, a waning moon silhouettes Capitoline Ridge. Within apartments, modest families, sip-watered wine nightcaps. Legionaries on Aventine watchtowers share vinegar. Wine drafts from leather bottles. The empire's veins pulse with grape and grain, ferment never still, seldom raging, sustaining hearth and frontier alike. Hold this vision. Cheap earthen cups stacked inside shadowed tavern, dice sleeping in clay bowl, embers winking beneath cooling stew pot. Wine's everyday hum will accompany us onward, to banquet halls where dilution becomes art and vintage stamp a weapon of prestige. Twilight glows rose gold along Rome's Palatine Hill, where marble porticos frame gardens perfumed with myrtle and evening stock. Inside one villa, torches flare within bronze wall sconces, melting sunset into amber pools of light. Quiet footsteps pad across mosaiced floors. Household slaves in immaculate tunics prepare the triclinioma dining chamber, whose very air hums with expectation. Guests arrive in small clusters, cloaks of fine wool or gauzy silk gathered at the shoulders. An usher murmurs each name, Lucius Calpurnius Piso, Octavia Balbus, so the household steward can seat them by rank. Low conversation ripples, polite marvel at a new fresco of Dionysus, soft teasing about a senator's latest oration. Yet beneath civility pulses an unspoken contest, who reclines closest to the host, whose vintage flows first, whose palate can name obscure vineyards with effortless confidence. Within the triclinium, 3 couches arranged in a horseshoe beckon beneath a ceiling painted midnight blue dotted with gold leaf stars. Each couch accommodates 3 guests, positioned left elbow on cushion, feet angled outward. The host claims place of honor mid-center. Those nearest feel subtle glow of social favor. At every elbow stands a polished maple tripod supporting personal bronze cupsum plane, others chased with mythic scenes, Europa and the bull. The infant Bacchus cradled by nymphs. A quiet clack of cymbals signals service. A young slave presents a narrow-necked glass flask, transparent, rare Syrian ware-holding pale straw-colored Surrentine. The Salarius, winemaster, decants a palm's depth into a crater of white marble veined green like river reeds. Into the wine he pours 3 equal measures of snow-melt water, shaved from mountain ice stored in straw-lined pits since winter. He stirs with a cedar paddle. Liquid eddies spiral gently, tones lightening as wine mingles with cold purity. Each cup receives a ladle exactly 1 cyathus, about 45 millimeters. The diluted Surrentine is bright, herb-tinged, a gentle overture meant to awaken palate without dulling wit. Guests raise cups. The host intones a short prayer to Liber Pater, god of vine and carefree joy. Sip cool, refreshing, gone in 2 swallows. Conversation blossoms. News from Baetica olive harvests. Rumors of Parthian envoys at Antioch. Discreet admiration of an ivory inlaid side table, imported from Alexandria. Momentarily, sturdy slaves wheel in a cedar cart bearing sealed amphorae. Eyes widen at the first Falernian from the legendary Opimian vintage, now 50 years matured. Only imperial cellars and handful of senatorial vaults still cradle such treasure. The host's mouth curves in modest pride. Prestige radiates more brightly than lamplight. For main course lacquered peacocks, steaming truffles, Dormus rolled in poppy wine master selects the caecuban, deep garnet hue, rich bouquet of dried fig and violet. He decants 3 measures into a silver crater, etched with satyrs, then adds 5 measures, snow water, achieving approximate 1.7 ratio. Custom dictates no Roman of dignity drinks marum, undiluted, at table. Restraint signals superiority over barbarian excess. The crater is placed on low stand, sympathetic slaves circulate, dipping long-handled ladles and filling cups in order of couch hierarchy. 2 slaves follow, one carrying bronze basin and towel, the other a tray of perfumed garlands. Guests slip blossoms behind ears, citrus and myrrh mingling with wine vapor. As courses cycle spiced hare, honey-glazed onions, oysters from Lake Lucrinus conversation shifts to light riddles, Latin epigrams, sly barbs veiled in praise. A young poet recites fresh lines comparing Falernian's glow to dawn over Tiber. Applause flutters. Each toast requires a theme: health of absent friends, enduring power of Rome, beauty of the host's mosaic floor. Cups meet gently, never clinked hard, lest cracked rims invite ill omen. Now the pinnacle. The host signals. The wine master carefully tilts the venerable Falernian amphora. Sediment, dark as river silt, has settled. He decants only clear upper wine into a small golden crater, adds 6 measures water to 3 of wine lighter dilution to temper potency, double ordinary vintages. Aroma, unfurlson baked raisin, almond blossom, faint smokiness of ancient amphora resin. Guests lean forward, smiles contained. Each receives but half cyathus, savoring slowly. A senator closes eyes, naming notes of saffron and pine ash. Another claims he detects ghost of once forbidden Secuban marsh flowers. Laughter, appreciative, ripples. More so when philosopher at lower couch softly teases that only their imaginations grow vintage, not grape. House attendants observe manners. If a guest's speech thickens, they quietly substitute water. If conversation grows too raucous, The winemaster drops a sprig of fennel into cratera signal to servants to extend dilution ratio. The banquet must thread fine line between convivial glow and undignified stupor. The host's prestige rides upon that balance as surely as on the vintage served. Plates of pomegranate arils sprinkled with ground pepper, honeyed almond cakes, and chilled peaches preserved in mulsum arrive. Dessert wine is lighter raisin sweet passum from Sicily, diluted 4 parts water. Cups smaller now, shaped like fig leaves, encourage measured sips. Harp music drifts. Lamps are trimmed lower, casting walls into amber haze where frescoed Bacchus seems to tip goblet in eternal toast. Near midnight, servants bring warm towels scented with rosemary. They wipe hands, dab lips. Final bowls of hydromelly water, honey, dash of wine vinegar hydrate throats and settle stomachs. Guests rise slowly from couches, retrieve cloaks, exchange lingering farewells at peristyle lit by moons spilling through open roof. Outside, Palatine's streets glow under oil lanterns. A slave escorts each party home with torch in hand, ensuring starlit walk remains dignified. Behind villa gates, kitchen boys douse coals, winemaster reseals, partial amphorae and clay, marking level with charcoal line, while fragrance of Falernian still wafts faintly in corridors. Within dimmed triclinium remain empty, cups glinting like small moons, crumbs of sweet almond. Faint perfume of garlands now wilting. The evening's measured revelry dissipates, yet reputation lingers. Guests will recount vintage and dilution ratio tomorrow in basilica colonnades, spinning new threads of social tapestry. Hold this calm aftertaste. Diluted Falernian warmth, soft harp echo, torchlight on marble. A soft dawn haze drifts over Rome's tiled rooftops as matrons leave their domus courtyards, directing servants, lighting household altars, guiding children to tutors. In polite society, a woman's measured grace extends even to her drinking cup, yet the boundaries of that cup shift across centuries, shaped by law, lore, and quiet defiance. In Rome's austere beginnings, legend insists a matron's lips rarely touched wine. The Lex Oppia, circa 215 BCE, and earlier sumptuary, edicts sought to limit luxury during wartime austerity. Later writers, Valerius Maximus, Pliny the Elder, spin cautionary tales. A husband who caught his wife kissing him while her breath smelled of wine purportedly beat her to death with a cudgel. When tried, he was acquitted. The court ruling wine, fire poured upon women. Scholars debate whether such accounts record common practice or serve as moral theater, but agree that cultural anxiety entwined women, drink, and potential disorder. Roman vocabulary drew fine lines. Vinum, regular wine. Respectable men diluted it, while good women were to avoid it outside ritual. Mulsum, wine blended with honey, sometimes allowed in measured sips during banquets or medicinal regimes. Passum, sweet raisin wine, considered gentler, occasionally prescribed for expectant mothers or convalescents. Sacrificium wine, libation portions women offered to household lares or deities like Ceres. Tasting was sanctioned, though only fingertip or tongue. Thus, the question was rarely abstinence versus indulgence, but rather dosage, context, and perception. Inside the atrium vestae, Vestals tended the eternal flame and poured unmixed wine, merum, into sacrificial pits. Paradoxically, they were bound by vow to chastity, yet granted liberties other women lacked right to travel by lectica, own property, and drink certain ritual wines to ensure purity of state rights. Their privileged cups underline Rome's logic. When female drinking served the Republic's sacred order, it was not only tolerated, it was required. Slip again into a late Republic triclinium. Among elite couches we visited earlier, women reclined beside husbands, jewels catching lamplight. Here an unspoken code determines measure. 3 parts water to 1 part wine for matrons. Freer dilution if physicians prescribe warmth for aching joints or stimulation for sluggish digestion. The host observes but seldom polices, for marital reputation as household currency wives manage their own equilibrium. Satirists like juvenile thunder about drunken aristocratic women overturning furniture. Yet archaeological residue lipids trapped in cup portios, typical female vessels contain diluted wine residue similar to men's. Physicians, including Serranus, recommended warmed mulsum to ease labor pains, while Celsus suggested a gentle draught of passum for nursing mothers to enrich milk. An alabaster medical cup engraved Salus per vinum, health through wine, unearthed at Pompeii bears traces of honeyed ferment, likely administered for menstrual cramping. Such prescriptions framed drinking as controlled therapy, aligning female consumption with care, not carousal. On Liberalia, 17 March, freeborn girls and women offered libations of new wine to Liber Pater, seeking fertility and safe childbirth. Crowds thronged the forum, bakers sold honey cakes soaked in must, and even conservative commentators softened their stance, recognizing communal ritual trumped individual restraint. During Matronalia, 1 March, wives toasted Juno Lucina with small cups of sweetened wine. Husbands often served them, symbolizing gratitude for household harmony. These feast days provided culturally sanctioned release valves for female conviviality. By the High Empire, concrete prohibitions faded. The Lex Oppia was repealed in 195 BCE. Later edicts skimmed surface luxuries, but seldom targeted women's cups. Inscriptions from funerary stelae celebrate matrons who hosted generous convivium. Poets like Ovid depict fashionable women sipping Chian wine at literary salons. Still, double standards lingered. A tipsy male senator evoked roguish charm, whereas a tipsy matron threatened household respectability. Many women navigated the divide with skill diluting heavily, pacing sips, selecting lighter varieties flavored with rose water or saffron to scent breath more pleasantly than raw wine. Outside elite circles, tavern walls in Pompeii preserve casual scrawl likely penned by female patrons. Biba feliciter, Celsa, drink happily Celsa. Another depicts a tiny caricature of a woman hoisting a cup, captioned, Noli timere morum, fear not custom. These snapshots hint that ordinary women slipped into Popinae, perhaps cloaked and quick, to join mixed company over cheap wine norms bending where watchful eyes dimmed. As female cups found moderated acceptance, Senate anxieties transferred to secretive orgies, and Bacchic initiations rumored to blur gender boundaries and fuel conspiracies. Reacting, the Senate issued the Senatus Consultum de Bacchanalibus, 186 BCE, restricting cult gatherings. Not everyday sips, yet public imagination fused wine, women, and chaos anew. We stand at that threshold no intrigued by liberating festivals, yet wary of clandestine excess. Breathe in a scene. A matron raises a modest cup of mulsum beside household altar. Outside street doors, rumors of Dionysian frenzy flutter. Night descends on the Aventine hill, cloaking vine-wreathed doorways in violet dusk. Somewhere beyond lamplit porticos, a faint tremor of drums begins low, pulsing, like a distant heartbeat. The sound threads through alley arches and over terracotta rooftops until it reaches a secluded courtyard, heavy with the scent of pine resin and crushed ivy. Here, under shivering torch flames, devotees gather for rites both alluring and disquieting, the Bacchanalia. Long before Roman magistrates took alarm, these ecstatic ceremonies drifted north from Magna Graecia. In the oak forests near Cumae, Greek colonists honored Dionysus with wine libations, cymbal clashes, and frenzied dances meant to dissolve the boundary between mortal and god. Shepherds, vintners, and city folk alike found release in shared rhythm, wine loosening speech into song, footsteps into whirling leaps. As Rome's influence absorbed Italy, the cult spread quietly through taverns, farmsteads, and urban insulae. By the early 2nd century BCE, Bacchic gatherings blended Greek ecstatic practices with native Italic fertility rites. Ivy-crowned women and men processed under twilight, carrying thyrsus staves tipped with pine cones and wound in grape leaves. Wine flowed in diluted bowls at first, then stronger draughts as night deepened. Step through a curtained arch. Within lamplight flickers against frescoes of satyrs and nymphs. Terracotta lamps shaped like theater masks cast playful shadows. Baskets overflow with pomegranates and figs. At the room's center, a crater stands waist-high, brim bubbling with dark, aromatic wine spiced with myrtle, honey, and a pinch of smoke-dried resin. Participants sprinkle drops on the earthen floor libation to chthonic spirits, then drink in measured sips while a flute breathes winding melodies. Feet begin to move, first in slow circles, then quickening. Hands clap, tambourines jingle, perception softens. Dilution ratios blur. Euphoria lacquers participants' faces with warm glow. Legend speaks of wilder, extreme sorgiastic abandon. Dagger oaths in blood-streaked frenzy, but archaeological traces instead show communal feasting plates, playing die for drinking games, and small terracotta figurines of Bacchus cradling a wine cup, smiling benignly. Excess existed, yet for many the rites offered catharsis, temporary relief from rigid societal tears. Whispers of nighttime revelry reached stern ears. Rumors swelled, women mixing with slaves, poisons brewed, plots against the state hatched under drunken shouts. Whether real or magnified, the tales unnerved conservative senators guarding Rome's moral scaffolding. In 186 BCE, they issued the Senatus Consultum de Bacchanalabusan edict, carved into a bronze tablet near the Temple of Ceres, forbidding Bacchic gatherings larger than 5 persons without praetor approval, dismantling secret shrines, and demanding initiates register names under penalty of death. Criers read the decree in forums across Italy, lictors smashed ivy, wreathed images. Magistrates seized wine-soaked altars. Yet the cult proved resilient. Devotees downshifted into smaller, quieter circles, naming their meetings convivia or simple sacra rather than bacchanalia. Wine bowls shrank, chants softened, the god's spark flickered but did not die. The crackdown revealed a tension at Rome's heart. Public drinking governed by decorum dilution, hierarchy, daylight clarity versus private drinking that dissolved barriers and courted divine ecstasy. The Senate's anxiety was less about wine itself and more about settings where wine untethered obedience to civic order. Ritual libation at state festivals remained safe. Clandestine, mixed, sex intoxication felt perilous. Poets later painted Bacchic scenes with shimmering ambiguity. Horace praised hillside revels where symbols shiver quiet moonlight, yet warned of madness in untempered draught. Ovid, before exile, sketched Maenads' loose tresses and ivy-laced limbs in tones of admiring caution. Frescoes at Pompey's Villa of the Mysteries depict initiates led by winged figures. Bowls of wine cradled like offerings of transformation faces show not terror but somber awe. Even after the edict, regulated Bacchic echoes lived on in public festivals. These festivals allowed Rome to vent collective steam, ensuring Bacchus stayed within allotted calendrical bounds. As decades flowed into imperial centuries, Bacchic fervor merged with broader religious pluralism. Mithraic mysteries, Isis worship, and eventually Christianity reshaped spiritual thirsts. Wine remained ritual, Christ's chalice, echoing Bacchic communion, but ecstasy pivoted from nocturnal revel to sober sacrament. Dionysus slipped into theater masks and vineyard walls, god of joyous harvest more than frenzy. Stand once more outside that ivy-draped courtyard. Drums have ceased, torches sputter to embers, Night air cools heated skin. Participants step onto quiet street, adjusting cloaks, smiles lingering soft. A few carry small ceramic cups engraved with grapevine souvenirs of shared metamorphosis. Tomorrow they return to workshops, looms, magistrate benches, roles reaffirmed. A pale dawn shimmers over the bustling docks of Ostia, Rome's salt-tanged seaport. Along cluttered quays, cranes creak and gulls wheel, while hundreds of pointed clay vessel samphoras stand in orderly ranks like an army awaiting orders. Their russet shoulders are daubed with black cursive, estate names, vintage years, consul dates, an elegant shorthand mapping the vineyards of an empire. Tonight we trace the quiet heroics of Transportho fermented grape, must journeys safely from remote terraces to frontier taverns, nourishing soldiers and senators alike. Lift an amphora, tapered base, two loop handles, slender neck. That nose-cone bottom nestles neatly into the ship's ballast sand, or slots into a mule-pack rack. Handles guide steady pours. Narrow mouth welcomes a pitch-lined stopper. Potters around the Mediterranean tweaked profiles dressel, one stout and heavy for early Falernian. Dressel 20 bulbous, perfect for Beatican olive oil, yet often repurposed for wine. Slender Gauloise types crossing the Rhone. Stamped shoulder seals function as passports, assuring customs that taxportoria has been paid at departure. After autumn, presses fall silent, amphorae are filled, corked with resin-smeared cones of pine, and whitewashed to receive painted tituli. Mule trains jingle down terraced hills, hooves striking rhyolite or chalk, each beast bearing 2 balanced jars. At Villa Rustica way stations, overseers check seals against wax tablets. Successful loads roll onto 2-wheeled carts, bound for the nearest river jetty. Italy's Tiber, Gaul's Rhone and Garonne, Hispania's Guadalquivir slow green arteries carry barges heaped with clay cargo. On board, stevedores wedge amphorae upright in knee-deep sandbeds. Sand cushions jars from fatal jolts and catches seepage. By journey's end, it smells faintly of oxidized wine and pine pitcha sommelier's desert. Mule teams tow upriver. Downstream, current does half the work, while steersmen pull away from shoals. At night, barges moor beneath willow boughs, crews ladling river water over jar tops to keep sun-warmed ferment from waking. Arriving at Ostia, barges offload beside granaries and oil storehouses. The Horea Veneria vast, vaulted warehouses gape, like cool caverns. Floor mosaics depict grape clusters and merchants' marks. Within, rows of amphorae rest on wood cradles, grouped by province. Lusitania, Narbonensis, Bithynia, Judea. Public notaries tally each arrival, chalking numbers on slate boards that clack under stylus like cicadas at noon. Beyond the key bob navis honorarii, broad-bellied merchantmen of 250-400 tons. Their holds are fitted with plank racks. Amphorae slide in nose, first until hull rises like honeycomb filled with terracotta cells. Larger vessels carry dolia monumental clay vats, some holding 4 0-liters sunken half-deep into planking, their rounded backs protruding like tamed whales. Sailors caulk seams with flax and pitch. During storms, fermented cargo sloshes in darkness. Yet thick resin layers pacify brine infiltration. Masters wait for the mare a Pertum-safe sailing season stretching roughly March to early November. They consult wind charts etched on cedar, noting Etesian breezes to speed eastern routes or Levante gusts across Tyrrhenian blue. At coastal stopovers Massalia, Carthago Nova, gauge spartial cargo trades for salted fish or garum, diversifying hold economy. Each port prints fresh fectigal stamps on remaining jars, an inked breadcrumb trail across waves. Disembarked amphorae meet ox-drawn carts bound for the Alps, the Rhine, even Britannia's mist-veiled forts. paved Roman road scrounged with gravel, edged by milestone mute axle clatter. Roadside mansions offer fodder, hot stew, and minor repairs. Their back rooms stack replacement jars for breakage contingencies. Couriers riding ahead alert garrisons to incoming allotments. Legion quartermasters check manifests, allocate daily sextari, about 0.54 liters, of diluted wine or acetum to centuries, and stash the rest in stone-lined cellars under earthen ramparts. Empty amphorae rarely journey back. Transport cost outweighs value. Many become latrine outflow, conduits, or dry goods bins. Others smash into Monte Testaccio near Romea, man-made hill of millions of shards, each shoulder stamp still legible under dust. Archaeologists, reading that terracotta library, know, jar by jar, the empire's liquid intake. Consider scale. Ostian records suggest up to 1 million amphorae a year moved through that single port in the High Empire. If each contained 25 liters, annual flow edged toward 25 million liters on Adriatic of wine, nourishing armies, baths, bakeries, banquet halls. Tax levies on every voyage funded aqueduct arches, legion pay, and arenas. Thus wine, beyond pleasure, underwrote marble facades of empire. Follow one jar's fate to Vindolanda near Hadrian's wall. Crack frost off the pitch, decant into a wooden tankard, mix with local well water. Legionaries taste a faint echo of sun-baked Italy, while wind howls over moor grass. Amphora neck becomes candle holder, body repurposed for grain, base buried as drainage pipe Roman thrift at world's edge. Let the image linger, moon glinting on amphora rows inside creaking hull. Distant gull cry. Resine, sweet air in warehouse shadows. A soft late afternoon glow warms the atrium of a modest domus on Rome's Caelian hill. On a low marble table rest 5 small glass flasks translucent, dappled with green or amber tinseach, holding wine that looks and smells quite unlike the straightforward reds and whites pouring through tavern jugs. Tonight, the household's paterfamilias plans a tasting, inviting friends to sample the empire's fragrant possibilities. Honeyed mulsum, cinnamon, laced conditum, raisin, thick passum, frothy barley ale, and, rarest of all, golden palm sap wine from Syene, near the first cataract. Begin with the simplest pleasure. Into a bronze crater, the steward empties a young Ligurian white crisp, low in tanninthan stirs in equal weight of mountain honey, warmed just enough to flow. A faint floral scent rises, orange blossom merging with green apple. After a brief rest, the mixture is strained through linen into cups, notched with cyathus lines for measured portions. Mulsum appears at many Roman breakfasts, in Taculum. Farmers sip a half cup with bread and olives before trudging to fields. Merchants fortify themselves for forum bargaining. Convalescents take it on physicians' orders, believing honey draws nourishing spirit from grape. Pliny the Elder recommends mulsum for loosening a stubborn cough, warming the breast without inflaming the mind. Its sweetness disguises a modest punch. Prudence dilutes it 2 or 3 parts water for midday refreshment. Next, the steward produces a clay amphoresk stamped Bursa Provinciae Africae. Inside is passum, wine from sun-dried Muscat grapes grown near Carthage's old ramparts. Raisins steep in must before pressing, concentrating sugar until liquid thickens to amber syrup. No spices here, no honey, just grape transformed by heat and patience. When poured, passum clings to cup walls, releasing aromas of fig jam, cedar, and faint desert dust. Roman bakers brush it over honey cakes. Midwives mix spoonfuls into pomegranate juice for women in labor. At temples, priests drizzle passum on sacrificial altar sits. Viscous thread burns with steady flame, pleasing to gods who govern ripening. Now, a small, stoppered glass vial emerges, Contents, the color of polished brass. Conditum paradoxum, literally, marvel flavored, is a recipe surviving in Apicius's cookbook. It begins like mulsum, but journeys farther. Black pepper for spark, crushed saffron for golden hue, malabathrum leaves, imported from distant India, for resinous perfume and a whisper of mastic resin. The blend simmers, cools, ages a fortnight in sealed amphorae, absorbing each note. One cautious sip reveals layers, honeyed entry, sudden prickle of pepper along the tongue, lingering herbal warmth that nudges both palate and pulse. Courtiers serve conditum at winter banquets to enliven chilled blood. Philosophers claim it sharpens thought for late-night disputations. Medical scrolls warn excessive draughts may unmoor the senses, but a half Cyathus-about 2 mouthful sends a pleasant inner glow radiating to fingertips without toppling equilibrium. Not all Roman drink is grape-born. In northern provinces where vines struggle, locals brew barley ale, the legions dub Cerevisia, honoring Ceres, goddess of grain. Thin, lightly soured, often flavored with herbs like rosemary or sweet gale, it froths bronze-brown beneath a coarse cap of bubbles. Across the Alps in Rhaetia, traders carry amphorae south. Curious Romans sample chilled mugs, remarking on its earthy bread crust aroma, softer punch, and ability to quench thirst during sweltering construction shifts. Though some connoisseurs sneer Cato called ale a peasant's porridge made liquid, imperial records show Cerevisia allotted to troops in Germania, proof that practicality often trumps snobbery. At the tasting's pinnacle stands a squat alabaster jar banded with blue faience. Its label, inked in Demotic script, reads Caranisos Palm Wine. Harvester slaves near Syene climb doom palms, scoring trunks at dusk. Overnight, sweet sap collects in earthen bowls. Ferment sets in by dawn. By the time caravans reach Alexandria, then Ostia, alcohol stabilizes delicate fruit notes. Date sugar, hint of almond, whiff of desert wind across sandstone. Because it sours fast, palm wine seldom travels beyond aristocratic curiosity. Tonight each guest receives only a thimble-sized silver thimble. It tastes like sunrise over Nile fields brief, surprising, receding before one grasps its entirety. The host smiles at widened eyes. Prestige, once again, is measured in rarity more than volume. Cinnamon from Ceylon crosses the Red Sea, passes Nabatean caravans, and doubles wine's price. Saffron grown on Rhodes or Cilicia adds royal glow and drains purses faster than Falernian. Honey, though plentiful, changes character by region-time sweet Attic honey versus fir resin Corsican. Merchants blend accordingly. City taverns might offer cinnamon wine using scrap spice and cheaper resinated red. Elite kitchens import whole spice chests, scenting wine to announce both palate and wealth. Even with flavors bold, Romans still dilute. A typical crater might see 3 parts water to 1 conditum, tempering sugar and alcohol so spice can dance without stomping. Too syrupy a cup risks sticking jaws, clouding speech unseemly for polite debate. Proper ratios debated as keenly as Senate decrees. Physicians suggest weaker for digestion, poets argue stronger for inspiration. Household heads compromise case by case. Ancient moralists differentiate temulentia, drunken stupefaction, from hilaritas, pleasant cheer. Flavored wines aim for the latter heightened senses, loosened social knots, sharp yet amiable wit. One satirist jokes that conditum paradoxum makes shy poets recite hexameters they never penned. Another quips honeyed mulsum renders mathematicians too mellow to count. Yet, grave inscriptions rarely blame flavored drinks for ruin. More often, they warn against undiluted mass-produced reds from shady Papanae. Our tasting concludes. Lamps dim, cicadas chirp beyond open shutters. Bronze cups bear glistening trace amber streaks of passum, golden film of saffron wine, faint foam ring from barley ale. The steward clears vessels, rinsing with lavender water. Guests recline deeper into cushions, lulled by layered aftertastes. Honey on tongue's tip, pepper warmth behind throat, whispered desert sweetness in memory. Lamplight trembles across a marble peristyle where evening songbirds have fallen silent. Cushions lie scattered from the earlier tasting, yet no one rises to depart. Instead, a slave approaches with a polished maple box that clicks softly when opened. Inside gleam 6 ivory knucklebones, their facets inked with numerals. The company settles, refreshed curiosity sparkling brighter than any undiluted vintage. Tonight, wine transforms from mere companion to playful opponent and, by dawn, to would-be physician. Each ivory talus bears 4 marked sides, I, 3, 4, viand, 2 rounded blanks. The highest roll, the Venus, all different numbers, wins automatic applause. The lowest, the Canis, all ones, prompts groans and a penalty draft. The steward places a shallow silver bowl at table center and pours half-diluted Serentine to the rim, rules agreed upon. Venus passed the cup to any player of choice. Simple majority, 2 or 3 matching faces. Drink half one Cyathus. Canis drain a full Cyathus and recite a line of verse-botched meter earns another splash. Dice. Clatter. Laughter rises, like warm lees. The stoic senator unexpectedly hits Venus and, with arch smile, passes the bowl to the resident poet, who concocts improvised hexameters about vinegar, tempered love. A matron rolls Canis. She downs her measure gracefully, quotes a flawless line from Ennius, and earns respectful nods. Next comes Navia game of aim rather than chance. A walnut shell, interior scraped smooth, floats in a bronze basin filled 2 fingers deep with mulsum. Each player flicks tiny bread pellets, hoping to land them into the shell without capsizing. Success lets the victor assign a sip. Failure obliges self-penalty. Bread grows wine-soaked. A few pellets sink, releasing bubbles that tickle surface reflections. Soft cheers echo. Stakes remain small, camaraderie large. Throughout Roman conviviality, the Cyathusa ladle of roughly 45 milliliters anchors conversation about measure. Poets joke of 3 Cyathus nights, suitable for verse drafting, and 10 Cyathus follies, ending in alleyway naps. The host tonight keeps a stylus and wax tablet, scratching tiny tallies beside each name, not to shame, but to ensure dilution ratios hold, and no guest crosses from hilaritas, pleasant cheer, into temulentia, stupefaction. The scorekeeper's role blends mathematics with subtle care. He slows pace for flushed faces, accelerates for those still chilled by evening breeze. As cups pass, discussion drifts to remedies. One guest, sporting a mild limp, explains his physician's regimen, warmed Falernian infused with rosemary, taken nightly to loosen sinews. Another swears by a mixture of 2 parts passum and 1 part seawater to settle rebellious digestion. In scrolls of Pliny and Celsus, wine transmutes into medicine. Falernian with rue antidote to snakebite, applied to wound. Old white wine compressed for tired eyes. Its acidity said to draw out heat. Conditum with pepper remedy for winter chills when rubbed on chest and sipped. Diluted vinegar wine, posca, mouthwash, to strengthen gums and ward canker sores. Even surgeons sterilize bronze scalpels in strong red before incision's primitive antisepsis, powered by tannins and alcohol. Of course, morning brings reckoning. Roman's catalog cures with almost superstitious zeal. Deep-fried canary eggs sprinkled with asafoetida, chased by a spoon of honey. Crushed fennel seeds dissolved in a beaker of diluted mulsum. Raw cabbage leaves, chewed slowly, Cato claimed they close wine's door before it storms the mind. Many, therefore, eat cabbage prior to feasts as well. Dormouse fat melted into warm winion, unappetizing but earnest counsel from the elder Pliny. Our gathering opts for a gentler safeguard. Bowls of chickpea, herb porridge, served alongside final dice rounds, meant to absorb lingering spirits. As midnight oil gutters low, the host reveals one more diversion. Each guest throws a single die, pledging that tomorrow's cup intake will match the shown number 1 for restraint, up to 6 for daring. Rolls scatter, laughter greets contradictory fates. The stoic senator lands a humble 2. The quietist scholar claims 6 and blushes crimson. It is harmless augury, but also subtle social contract excess becomes self-policed through play. Cups finally clink a soft farewell. A few drops remain. They are tipped onto the hearthstone for Somnus, god of rest. The steward offers a draught of plain, warm water, flavored with mint rome's simplest, most reliable hang. Over preventive. Guests rise, joints creaking pleasantly, minds buoyed by games that kept indulgence artful, not anarchic. Soon the peristyle echoes only sandal steps fading down corridor, whisper of cloaks against mosaic, distant bark of street corner mongrel. Above, constellations spin unhurriedly, reminding that Roman revels, though spirited, obey cycles older than any dice tally. Dawn drifts pale across an early 4th century Rome, its streets quieter than in the Republic's boisterous prime. A soft clang of church bells mingles with the muted rattle of tavern shutters. Change moves through the city like diluted wine through water slow, inevitable, gently altering every flavor. Tonight we follow the final leg of our journey, how Rome's ancient love affair with the vine found new meaning in the chalice of an emerging faith. Even before Christianity's rise, philosophers urged moderation. Seneca praised the one-cup warmth that brightens thought but leaves judgment clear. Medical writer Galen warned that undiluted reds inflame the liver and dull the memory. By the late Empire, such sober counsel grew louder. Laws under Constantine reduced tavern licenses near barracks, aiming to curb legionary brawls. Edicts capped banquet spending, echoing old Republican sumptuary anxieties. Step into a modest insula apartment converted for worship. Oil lamps press halos against rough plaster, bearing a faint Chiro symbol. A low table, once laden with mulsum and peppered venison, now holds a single ceramic jug of common red and a dish of plain loaves. The presbyter breaks bread, pours wine into a shallow cup, and reads softly, "Take, drink, this is my blood." Congregants sip in turntony mouthfuls, undiluted yet sparing. The act is not convivial indulgence, but quiet covenant. Wine's significance shifts from social bravado to spiritual bridge. Vineyards did not vanish. Christian communities still prized sacramental wine, preferably red, symbolically rich, but demand favored purity and stability over potent prestige. Some vintners, formerly hawking sharp Falernian, now market Vine of Ephesus or Holy Vintage, sealed with Chi-Rho wax stamps, ensuring clergy of untainted quality. Amphora imagery evolves. Ivy garlands give way to simple crosses or doves. As Bacchic rites wane, their echoes persist in folk habits. Liberalia processions become spring fairs where children taste first-watered sips under parental watch. Saturnalia retains license for temporary role reversals, though Christian preachers warn against excess. The tavern persists, toots Dolia, now scrawled with prayers invoking Saints Peter and Paul alongside old graffiti of Priapus. In side rooms, patrons toast harvests with half cups before heading home for evening candle prayer. Across the Alps, nascent monasteries inherit Roman viticulture manuals. Benedictine rules grant monks moderate wine, modicum vinum, to avoid illness from constant water, yet counsel restraint. Let us remember wine makes even wise men slip. Cellarers track daily rations, replicate amphora storage techniques, and unknowingly preserve classical enology for medieval generations. Elite households still uncork aged Massic or Sylvan Surrentine at weddings, but portion sizes shrink. A toast is symbolic, not a test of fortitude. A Christian poet praises wine that warms charity without igniting vice. In mosaics, Dionysus yields place to vine, entwined cross-same grapes. New iconography. Picture late imperial dusk along the Tiber. Fishermen haul nets near crumbling warehouses. A small basilica's bells toll vespers. Across the river, an elderly tavern keeper rinses amphorae, humming an ancient hymn to Liber he never fully abandoned. In a nearby courtyard, catechumens prepare for baptism, sipping honey water rather than wine in pre-rite fast. Two worlds overlap, neither fully erased. Our vessel now rests empty yet fragrant with memory. We have walked dawn vineyards of Massico, tasted legionary posca in frontier chill, played dice under tavern lamps, reclined on silk cushions where Falernian flowed, whispered among ivy-shadowed Bacchic rites, watched amphorae bob across blue seas, savored honeyed mulsum and peppered conditum, gambled for cyathi counts, and finally raised the modest Christian chalice. Across these scenes, one constant prevailed. The Romans seldom guzzled for oblivion. They diluted, flavored, measured, prescribed, argued, legislated, and sanctified ever, seeking that sweet interval between thirst and excess. Their cups mirrored the empire itself, vast, adaptive, and forever balancing order with pleasure. Allow this reflection to settle like lees at the bottom of a well-kept jar. Hear a distant clink of pottery fading into night. Feel a cooling breeze scented with grape leaves and faint resin, and notice the present room, quiet, safe, comfortably modern. If sleep now beckons, let eyelids close, trusting that history's long river carries its lessons gently forward. Savor in moderation, share in fellowship, and toastal wasto, the calm that follows measured indulgence. Good night, and Bene bibas, you drink well, whatever fills your modern cup.